Hello everybody, in this video we will speak about the group 6 of Bach essences, about despondency and despair. And because this is the biggest group, it contains 8 essences. It is part 1, and in part 2 we will complete these essences. The first 5 essences are about performance and failure, and these are the essences we will speak about them today. Oak, elm, pine, larch, crab apple. And the other group, Star of Bethlehem, willow, and sweet chestnut, deal with some suffering or loss, and we will speak about them in the next video. So, we can compare these remedies with horses. And oak is like a draught horse, draught animal that does a lot of work, a lot of difficult physical work often. And he uses his strong will to overcome daily problems. And he often has a history of many obstacles he had to overcome. He had to pull the whole family to hold everybody around, and he remained quite optimistic in spite of this difficult situation. And the problem is that he suppresses his body feelings. He isn't aware of the fact that he is overexerting himself, and that is why he may have especially physical problems, like problems with tendons or with muscles that are overexerted, and he doesn't give them the rest that they need, and then he feels frustrated because these pains limit him in fulfilling his daily duties. And we can compare oak with other remedies from this group, especially with elm. Elm has an overwhelming responsibility. He sets himself higher and higher goals, and at some moment he feels that he has exceeded, or that it exceeded his limits of his abilities, and he becomes he feels despair because of that. He has a fear of failure, but it's always temporary. And pine sets too high goals, and then he is not able to complete them, to fulfill them, and then he feels reproaches of conscience, even because of minor mistakes. And vervain has fixed principles, and like oak, in some struggle, in some difficult situation, he may fight even when the other people would already given up their struggle, because he has his principles and he believes that it is the right thing to do. Elm is like a noble horse, like a horse for steeplechase, for competition. He's elegant, he is very capable, and these people have a tendency to take over bigger and huger responsibilities, and they are often very capable and get to high positions, but finally they take over some task that they aren't able, or they feel it's too much for them, and they may feel a temporary despair from the threatening failure. It may happen, for example, to usually good students that suddenly have a blackout during an exam. They forget everything and they feel everything is ruined. And we can compare elm with oak. Oak has a strong will and suppresses his feelings to be able to work hard, and pine that sets too high goals and then fails and has reproaches of conscience. Crab apple, that's a quite different horse. He needn't pull some heavy burdens. He needn't prove that he is very efficient. He is just beautiful, and he pays a lot of attention to external appearance. appearance, and any small imperfection is viewed as a serious flaw. They may pay attention to a small pimple on their skin, and they want to get rid of it by any means. And at the same time, they have an aversion to dirt or toxins or infections, and they have a feeling that their body might be intoxicated. When you ask them how in their fantasy what would help them, they tell that something that would purify their body because it has caused some toxins, some bad food or some pollutants, food additives. And they often have a distorted view of their body. It is a remedy frequently used in eating disorders. And they undergo, for example, plastic surgery because they feel that some part of their body is imperfect. And the problem is that they pay a lot of attention to external things, to superficial things, but they forget what is inside, or they neglect. So they are very superficial and pay attention to these superficial, nice but artificial things. And they may keep various diets to keep the body healthy and clean and to be slim. And crab apple may be used temporarily after, for example, sexual abuse. They feel dirty. Crab apple has probably some symbolic connection with leprosy, where people could have been excluded from the society because of a small blemish on the skin. And that is why crab apple is used for any skin eruption, disease, discharge, or smell that can provoke aversion or disgust of people around. And it is also used for people who have a feeling that they have disgraced personal or family image or honor. And we can compare crab apple with pine. Pine has reproaches of conscience. He feels dirty but morally. And pine is another remedy used after sexual abuse. And rockwater. Rockwater keeps strict diets because he wants to be very healthy and he wants to be an example for the other people. Pine is a horse that set his goal too high and he broke his leg. And he has too high standards. He has ideal fantasies about how the mother should be, or a student should be, or worker should be, and they are unable to fulfill them perfectly. And then they have reproaches of conscience. And they don't like themselves, they punish themselves. There might be also some self-destructive behavior, like they may drink alcohol, use drugs, or they may live some, they may have sex with some people, unsuitable people, just to punish themselves. They feel that they do not deserve love because they failed, they are guilty. And similarly, they may overeat and become obese because they feel guilty, and they suppress this feeling of guilty by eating. Then they feel guilty because of being obese and overeating. And after sexual abuse, they feel guilty and morally impure because they maybe feel that it was their mistake, that they were raped. We can compare pine with crab apple. They feel physically impure after sexual abuse, and centauri that has a fear of refusal and desires to please the other people and is unable to say no. A perfect worker, for example, a pine worker, also cannot tell no to the boss because he would feel that he would fail. Oak is a hard worker and overexerts the body, suppresses his body feelings, And elm sets very high goals and takes over a huge responsibility and has a temporary feeling of a threatening failure. And larch, here there are two horses, or a horse, a pony, and larch feels like this pony. And larch has a lack of self-confidence. He believes that he is less capable than the others. So, and this lack of self-confidence often has a long history. Since childhood, they have felt that something is wrong, something is insufficient in them. And they also, even in their physical problems, they may tell that their lungs have always been weak, and they have had many respiratory infections, or that their memory has always been weak. And that is why, because they know they will fail, they do not try something and do not make a sufficient attempt. They do not invest energy in it. And they also frequently compare with the other people, and they say the other people are much more efficient than I am, so I cannot go into this competition or ask for this job because there are many people that are more suitable. And we can compare larch with gorse. Gorse is for hopelessness during some difficult situation. But if you ask gorse whether it is possible to overcome it, gorse would tell you, no, it's not possible because the situation is hopeless. But if you ask larch whether somebody else could overcome it, and he says yes, because the other people are much more efficient than I. And Gentian is first optimistic, makes an attempt, then fails, and he feels discouraged, and then he starts again, and there is some repetitive pattern. And Wild Rose feels resignation without a sufficient reason, and he gives up easily. And you may ask, you can see that the situation is changeable, is disagreeable but changeable, but he doesn't do a sufficient attempt. He just stays in it and survives one day after another. So, still once, performance and failure. Oak, hard workers fighting with difficult life situations and overstretch their body. Elm sets higher and higher goals and has excessive feeling of responsibility, and suddenly he gets a temporary fear of failure. And Pine has too high demands on himself and feels guilty because he cannot fulfill it. And Larch feels incapable, and he knows he will fail, and that is why he doesn't even start or doesn't invest enough energy in this attempt. And he has a tendency to compare himself with the other people. And finally, Crab Apple. Crab Apple pays a lot of attention to external appearance and is stressed by minor imperfections, as aversion to dirt, disorder, and tries to purify the body, and has a fear of poisoning or infection. And it may be used in, for example, eating disorders or after rape. Also, Pine can be used after some sexual abuse. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. And in the next video, we will speak again about group 6, but in the part 2 we will speak about the remedies that deal with suffering and loss.